You're listening to the School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast with me, Maury Morgan.
Ladies and gentlemen, your next comedian.
Shouldn't drink on an empty head, you know that, don't you?
That is the shittiest heckle I have ever heard in my life.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
What's a bucket list?
You have dangerously underprepared yourself for the shit that is about to get real.
And welcome to the School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast. My name is Maury. Well, the interview that you're about to hear is with Brad Oakes. He's a 28-year veteran of stand-up comedy. He's worked in TV, he's worked in radio. In fact, he coaches some of the most successful stand-up comedians that are touring around Australia and the world today. He wouldn't tell us exactly who, though. I did try. Brad is a fantastic coach and he's also a fantastic teacher at the School of Hard Knock Knocks. So if you like what you hear in this podcast, you can meet Brad in person and have that one-on-one experience as well. The next course for the School of Hard Knock Knocks is May 21 to 25 in Melbourne, in South Yarra, at Imperial, which is on Chapel Street. So again, if you like what you hear and you'd like to take your stand-up comedy to the next level, or maybe tick off your bucket list, then please come along to the School of Hard Knock Knocks May course, 21 to 25th of May. And in the meantime, let's hear from Brad Oakes. I'm very pleased to introduce, I'd say my teacher as well, Brad Oakes. How are you, Brad?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
I'm very good. Now, Brad, I met you in one of the first School of Hard Knock Knocks classes, and I learned a lot from you personally. You gave me some very direct feedback in comedy, because you've been in the business for quite some time.
Yeah, coming up to 28 years.
28 years. That's amazing. And I think you gave a lot of knowledge away to the trainees, and I think the people who are listening to this podcast today will learn a lot about what it takes to be a comedian, a stand-up comedian specifically, from your, as you said, 28 years of comedy. Where were you born? Where were you from, Brad, originally?
Melbourne boy. I was born in Box Hill in the 60s, and I grew up partly out that way, and I grew up in my teens. I grew up in Hawthorn.
And what made you get into comedy in the first place 28 years ago?
I came back from living in Sydney, where I'd had a career in trade unions. I'd burnt out in, you know, it's the industrial sector is quite a demanding area, and I burnt out, came back to Melbourne, and didn't really have a career. And then somebody dared me to do stand-up comedy, and I kind of got addicted to it straight away.
So someone obviously knew that you were funny.
Yeah.
So in your union days, were you the guy cracking jokes and keeping it?
It's certainly how I presented, you know, and there's a lot of funny people across different unions as well. So it's certainly how I networked. You know, comedy is a form of criticism anyway, and a lot of the humour just about how bad managers were at managing. Yeah. And then you know, somebody daring me to do it, I think it's a very, very telling point that I think that, you know, anybody can be a comedian if you're funny. Mm-hmm. But it's a good rule of thumb that if you think you're funny yourself, that's not enough. But if your friends think you're funny, then you probably are. And you probably have the wherewithal to get up and do it in front of strangers. Yeah.
Tell us about that first time. Your friend dared you. You said yes, so where was it? Where'd you lose your virginity?
It was at a place called Le Joke, which was at the old Last Laugh Theatre. Yep. It was Tuesday nights. They used to have tryout nights there, which people now refer to as open mic, but back then we called it tryout. And you didn't get paid, but the beauty about where I started was that it was a mini theatre. It was about a 90 to 100 seat theatre, and it had a stage manager and who was also the tech, and it was well run with a professional MC and headliner, and you got given notes as well about how well or you know how badly you'd gone, which you know, right or wrong, they weren't always right, but it was you know, it meant guidelines, if you like. And it certainly helped, I think, in developing it. You know, I started around about the same time, Judith Lucy and Jim Owens. You know, I think we all benefited from it.
Yep. So you got up on stage, you performed. Obviously, you got some pretty positive feedback. I believe later on you became a writer for a number of TV comedy shows. Let me remember the Full Frontal, Comedy Company, and even Hey Hey It's Saturday. How did you get those gigs?
Yeah. Well, just going back to my first gig, that was a bit of a blur for me. Richard Stubbs at the time was the MC, and Richard said to me afterwards, I think I did 7 minutes, and I was thrilled. And he said to me, well, what's it like? And I said, it's like sex. He said, really? I said, well, it's longer. 7 minutes, much longer than sex. He said, well, what do you remember about it? I said, well, just like the first time I had sex, I remember nothing. And you really got to go and do it again before you can really remember much, because it's a thrill, but it's pretty scary the first time you do it. But so are many things. And then from that, I was around on the scene for a couple of years, going out and doing like everybody, just doing gigs wherever they were. Yeah. And then I was lucky enough to be picked up with a few other up-and-coming comedians by Ian McFadden, who was the producer of Comedy Company, who, after I think it was a 1 or 2 year hiatus, they were bringing the show back, and he wanted all new people. He wanted all new writers. And he thought at the time that stand-up comedians were probably the best writers. Yep. So, all of a sudden I went from obscurity to not only writing for the show, but then appearing on the show. Yep. And that was never even in my contract. And so for about 5-7 years, I was in and out of different writing jobs. And I went from Comedy Company, I went to Full Frontal, and then I ended up writing for the last years of the original series of Hey Hey It's Saturday. Yeah, not the new one that came back briefly. That fell over. Yeah,
fell over. I think probably because of blackface.
Yeah, it was because of blackface, but also too, it was really. I think a lot of people think that it was due to the fact that the format didn't gel with the new audiences. Yeah. So that once they got into trouble for the blackface incident, people were very quick to say, let's shelve it, and gone. So it came back. I think it only lasted 6 weeks or something like that.
Oh, yeah, right. Wow, so short. Yeah. So you wrote a lot. Do you have a particular methodology for writing jokes?
Well, writing stand-up comedy is different to writing sketches, and Full Frontal and Comedy Company were sketch shows, and then writing jokes for a show like Hey Hey It's Saturday, which is a variety show. You're writing a lot more. You're writing concepts or just one-liners, people say. So they're all different writing processes in a way. The most telling difference is that if you're a stand-up, you're writing jokes that you're going to say yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you're writing for a TV show, then you're writing humour that's going to be directed by somebody other than yourself. Yeah. And if it's a sketch, it's going to be acted by other people other than yourself. So they become different processes. What they have in common is they need to be funny. And they need to be funny quite often. Helps. In terms of how many minutes there are.
In stand-up comedy, they say, you've got to have a joke every 12 seconds or something. Would you agree with that? Or
I do to an extent. I can't see the point of not being funny, when you're on stage. And, people refer to laughs per minute or LPMs, if you like. Some people say 5 per minute, which is, I guess, every 12 seconds. But, it can average out as well. Like, it might take you a minute to set up a joke. But then you want to get as many laughs out of it as you can. Yeah. Again, without boring people, because I can't see the point of speaking for 4 minutes on stage for one laugh. It's not a demand. It's of business, but it's no different to football. Like if you can get the ball and do something very, very good with it, every time you get it, well, a lot of people will admire that. So you can't be a slave to it. You have to use your common sense about it. Certainly, I think the big difference people find when they do stand-up comedy, quite apart from the fact that everybody writes their own jokes, is that the humour you do in stand-up comedy, it's not like jokes that people tell each other at parties and, lunch breaks and so on. They don't go for 4 minutes and there's one laugh at the end of it. The joke is not in the telling. The joke is in how many laughs you can keep getting out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've heard one of your jokes. You tell a story about a fish at the bottom of the ocean, and I think that I won't say what that joke is, but I know that the joke lead up could be up to a minute. I think even longer without a laugh. But when it hits you, when you come out with that last line, I think it's all worth it.
Yeah, and thank you. And what I do is in that joke too, is I put little Easter eggs in the joke along the way, so that it remains either compelling or interesting, or it has little kind of smirky joke along the way.
Yep.
Because once again, I don't want people to get bored listening along the way, because they do have an expectation after a while. Particularly you've been on stage 30 minutes, they have an expectation that you're going to keep delivering.
Yeah. And you say Easter eggs. So is that the Easter eggs are little snippets? Is this your language? Did you create this terminology?
I kind of borrowed it from the internet, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, I just mean that in terms of any story being interesting, then it's good to have little happy discoveries along the way. Like an Easter egg hunt, I suppose.
No, I like it. When it comes to comedy, do you have to have a look?
I think that I think that you have to look like yourself, or you have to look like whoever you're portraying. Mm-hmm. You're not necessarily on stage being yourself so much as you tend to be portraying an aspect of yourself, in general, a confident aspect of yourself.
Yep.
Because that's who people are going to listen to. Like, if you can imagine during the day that you can break your day up into being confident, supremely confident, unconfident, snivelingly unconfident, and reclusive and hiding behind the couch. Well, some of those aspects you don't want to take out on stage because they're not compelling to people. People aren't going to want to listen to that person. So you're going to portray a certain part of yourself. Having said that, then there's deadpan people like, the inevitable Stephen Wright.
Yeah.
Where, people make an allowance for the boring deadpan delivery. The joke is very strong. So there's no one way to do it. There's a mixture. What it is you really need to, there's no point in acting like somebody you aren't. I'm quite overweight, so there's no point in me even pretending that I'm some kind of Olympian, not even a weightlifter. And I'm also I'm in my 50s now, so there's no point in pretending that I'm some young guy who goes to pick up people in nightclubs. You need a degree of authenticity, but more importantly too, then you have to write your jokes so that they sound authentic as well. They sound, in my opinion, they sound like the way people speak. And that's what I do. And I work with other people on that as well.
Well, you got picked up by Gold FM, I believe, and you were, I think it was a Saturday morning. Was that right?
Yeah, I briefly, for a few months, 1 year, a fellow named Chris Bennett and I had a radio show on Gold FM, and the pinnacle of that was we devised a game called Parking Ticket Poker. 5 people to ring up and take the last 5 numbers of their serial number on their parking ticket, and whoever had the strongest poker hand would pay their parking ticket. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, we didn't last there. Saturday morning on the radio, nobody's looking for gold, if you like, on a Saturday morning. And in the end, I think we just annoyed them. They sacked us.
But you're still a very popular comedian. I mean, you're doing cruises up and down the coast, one a month, I believe.
That's what it works out to. Yeah, I go about once a month, do a couple of shows on P&O ships, and anywhere from mainly out in the South Pacific. Yep. And sometimes comedy cruises, with other comedians, sometimes over in the West. But yeah, it's someone at my age, it's good. It's nice to get out of Melbourne during the winter once a month.
Yeah, definitely. And is that for stand-up comedian wannabes, people who are just starting out in their career, is that a career move, doing cruises?
Oh yeah, you kind of need to have a fair body of material. do it. So, you're doing 45-minute shows.
Yep. Oh,
so
yeah.
you can, some people do it and they've just got 45 minutes, but most of the time you think to yourself, well, you need a fair amount of time, a fair amount of material, because you're getting different people all the time.
Yep.
You're not entirely sure what's going to work and what isn't, and you need to be updating your material all the time.
Yeah. So essentially, young comedians, or when I say young, but comedians who's just starting out, once you hit that magic 45 minutes, you can start looking at a paid holiday on a cruise somewhere, or at least it's an option for the future.
Well, yeah, look, it's an option. Just as back a while ago, people would tour around the mines.
Oh, yeah.
Over in Western Australia. So your little driving holiday, if you like. That's stand-up comedy. You're going to go where the audiences are, as well as,
yep.
Working on ships. I do footy clubs. Like a lot of comedians do footy clubs in the winter months. Footy clubs, netball clubs, and you just ultimately, unless you become a big name, like where people will come and see you, you need to go where the people are.
Yeah, and on that note of big names, a little birdie told me that you've been coaching quite a few top-level comedians, famous comedians, and in fact 3 top-level comedians that recently played at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, which I think is just finished up.
Yeah, well, yeah, and see that something you mentioned at the start. You said you talked about teaching comedy, and see, I don't believe you can teach people to be funny, but I do. I coach people, and I coach people from the point of view of some of these people are better at me than comedy, but I'm kind of more like I suppose more like a tennis coach or a golf coach, that I just I work with them, and I kind of give them a commentary on what they're doing. I don't write jokes for them, but I tidy up some of the things that or help them find a little bit more humour in something. Mostly because, too, these people, they're not incompetent or anything like that. They're just busy. They're doing radio and TV as well as stand-up comedy.
Yep.
And, I just help them get a show together. But, yeah.
Can you name drop? Anyone maybe in the past, a while back, maybe they're out of comedy now, but or still in it, even better?
No. But just for the very thing of name dropping, it's just you just have to take my word for it.
That's fine. I'm just trying, I'm trying to be a journalist, uncover some gossip. I'm just thinking, are you the jokes behind Rhys Nicholson, for example?
Rhys Nicholson is a very, very funny comedian in his own right.
Oh, he absolutely is. I was just wondering if you were coming up with all the gay jokes, but
not at all.
Not giving anything away, are you? All right.
No, but I mean, like you said, I've come in and spoken at the courses that you and Ben run, and
you have.
So it goes from any level, basically. It's still it's one thing to write a joke, but you want to get the joke right. And, there's a few people out there who I call freaks who just get them right every time. But most of us, it's a form of sculpture, that you basically get the idea of what the joke is, but then you have to mould it or work it into some kind of actual perfection.
Coming near the end of this interview, what advice would you give? Because you've coached a lot of people, you've seen careers blossom, you've covered TV, radio, cruise liners. What advice would you give? I mean, obviously you give hours and hours of advice, but say 1 or 2 snippets of advice for an up-and-coming comedian or a comedian wannabe that's listening to this and is going to enrol in the School of Hard Knock Knocks comedy course. What would you give them?
I think that it's, for a start, I think that without meaning to deter anybody, it is a young person's game when you start out, just simply because you're going to get knocked around personally, like not physically, but your ego's going to take a beating.
Yep.
And also too that stand-up comedy is largely, to me, it's something that you learn by getting it wrong rather than getting it right.
Yeah, right.
That what you do is if you have a great gig, you tend not to know why.
Yeah.
But if you have a bad one, you have a fair indication of what went wrong. And the thing is that when you're younger, you're far more resilient. You get over that
Yeah, right.
a lot quicker. So I would say that, and that doesn't mean that, people who are older can't do it. But I would say that you need to prepare for some disappointment. I would say, too, that you should go and watch people who've done comedy for a while. You should go and watch them live. I don't think you can learn that much when you're watching somebody on YouTube.
Yeah.
You may may learn about structures and jokes and so on, but you're looking at a finished product there. You're not looking at somebody doing a live performance where anything could happen. There are unpredictable things that shape what you do. So I'd advise people to just go and see as much comedy as they can and ask themselves, why is that person doing that? I'd also say that, as much as you want to keep writing new stuff, because, everybody wants to get enough material to be able to do a proper 20, 30-minute set, that you should always be honing what you do. Anything that's any good, don't stop doing it. Polish it until it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, and there's a kind of an unwritten rule in comedy. I guess a lot of comedy is unwritten. You do a joke 3 times before you toss it away.
Yeah, and I tend to follow that rule.
Yep.
Although I never toss it away, I'll sideline it.
Right.
Because sometimes I've written a joke, and see, one of the things that tends to go wrong with jokes, once you start doing comedy, you get an idea of what's funny and what works. Quite often when you do something that doesn't work, it's not because it wasn't funny, it's because you haven't shown people the joke properly. You made some error in it. Quite often that'll be a contextual error. You'll have assumed that people know something that they don't know. For example, you can go to Sydney and say, bathers. And in fact, they grow up calling swimming costumes a cosy. Right. So you could have made a simple mistake like that. It's if you think it's funny, and it is, your instincts are good. Don't throw it away, because 10 years later, even, I've got the time to prove it. You may suddenly work out how that joke is best said,
right.
Or you can put it into another show. You can, there's some things like lend themselves to visual. I wrote a sketch for a TV show, which was basically about 2 golfers just walking around the golf course, and rather than hitting golf balls, they're just throwing their golf clubs as far as they can.
Okay.
And it's a great TV joke, because you think, because you can, put the camera wherever you want. So you think, these guys are going to hit a golf ball, and then suddenly, whack, and one guy says, geez, you got onto that. You see a golf club going end over end over end. And I argued at the time that golfers would find that very funny, because 2 things you want to do with a golf club. 1 is hit the ball as best you can, and 2, throw that golf club as far away from you as possible. Right? But see, it doesn't hold up to explaining, but it does hold up to being visual.
Well, Brad Oakes, this interview has been very insightful. You do provide a lot of insights when we see you in the classroom as well. You're a coach, so anybody who's maybe already got a career in stand-up comedy, wants to take it to the next step, wants a wall to bounce ideas off and refine and polish, they can contact you. How does someone get in contact with Brad Oakes?
They can find me on Facebook, man.
That's simple, yeah?
It's not a common name. Or they can find me through you.
Or they can contact us, absolutely. Yeah, no worries at all. Well, Brad, I look forward to seeing you in May for our May School of Hard Knock Knocks course, which is the 21st to the 25th, and I believe you'll be coming along one of the first few days of that course. sharing with us some insights. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, mate.
And I'll see you very soon.
All right, cheers.